Ego was known throughout Umuwachara village as the strongest woman anyone had ever seen. Tall, broad, and confident, she towered over most men and women alike. Her love for wrestling and fighting was unmatched, and no one in the village, man or woman, dared challenge her without trembling. Even the strongest warriors had tasted defeat at her hands. She had a reputation that brought respect and fear in equal measure. Her size and strength came from years of hard labor and a hearty appetite. People whispered about her in awe. Her fame spread beyond the borders of Umuachara, with people from neighboring villages coming to witness her prowess. But despite her fierce nature, she had a loving home and a devoted husband, Ikena, who was known for his quiet demeanor and lean figure. Every year, during the New Yam Festival, villagers held wrestling matches to celebrate strength and bravery. For the past 5 years, Ego had dominated the arena. Men who boasted of strength or speed would be flung to the ground by her within moments. Women who tried to challenge her found themselves begging for mercy. Her victories only added to her pride. The village elders praised her as a symbol of power, and she reveled in the attention. Her husband, Ikena, remained her biggest supporter, always cheering for her from the sidelines. However, the villagers began to murmur, wondering if there was anyone left who could defeat her. One evening, after a particularly thrilling match, the village gathered around the village square, eating, drinking, and discussing the day's events. Amidst the chatter, a bold young man spoke up. "Ego has fought everyone," he said loudly, drawing the attention of the crowd. "But there is one person she has never fought, her husband, Ikena." The crowd erupted in laughter. Ikena, the quiet, skinny man who never raised his voice or his hands. It seemed absurd, but soon the laughter turned to curiosity. The idea spread like wildfire. Could Ikena, the man who seemed content to live in his wife's shadow, actually defeat her? The talk of Ikena and Ego fighting grew louder over the next few days. The village elders, usually sober and wise, found themselves swayed by the excitement. They agreed to host a special match, one that would pit husband against wife. Ikena was reluctant at first, refusing to fight the woman he loved. "I have no interest in these games," he said, but Ego, ever confident, smirked. "Let them have their match, Ikena. You won't last 5 minutes in the ring with me." Her words stung him, not because of their truth, but because of the pride behind them. Slowly, Ikena began to consider the fight, not as a matter of proving strength, but as a lesson in humility. The day of the match drew near, and the entire village buzzed with anticipation. The elders arranged for a grand arena to be built in the center of Umuachara. Bets were placed, and the villagers picked sides. Most, unsurprisingly, favored Ego, confident in her strength. But a few curious souls placed their hopes on Ikena, if only to see something unexpected. Ego spent the days leading up to the match training, flexing her muscles and enjoying the excitement. Ikena, on the other hand, did not train at all. Instead, he spent his days quietly meditating by the river, reflecting on the challenge ahead. He was not concerned about winning or losing. His mind was on a much deeper matter. On the morning of the fight, the village was filled with eager spectators. The elders sat in the front row, while children climbed trees to get a better view. Ego entered the arena first, her massive frame casting a shadow over the ground. She raised her arms, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Ikena followed quietly, his steps calm and measured. The crowd hushed as he took his place opposite Ego. The stark contrast between them was almost comical, her bulk against his thin, wiry frame. The drumbeats began, signaling the start of the fight. Ego lunged at Ikenna with her usual force, expecting him to be an easy target. To everyone's shock, Ikenna dodged Ego's initial strike with a grace no one had ever seen before. He moved swiftly, avoiding her blows with ease. The crowd gasped in amazement as he sidestepped her every move. Ego, growing frustrated, doubled her efforts, swinging her arms and attempting to grapple him. But Ikenna's speed was unmatched. Ego's confidence began to waver. She had never encountered such an elusive opponent. No matter how hard she tried, she could not pin Ikenna down. The villagers murmured amongst themselves, their admiration for Ego slowly shifting to awe for her husband's skill. Minutes turned into an hour, and Ego was visibly exhausted. Sweat poured down her face as she panted heavily. Ikenna, on the other hand, remained calm and collected, barely breaking a sweat. At last, with a swift movement, Ikenna caught Ego off guard. Using her own momentum against her, he flipped her onto her back, with a technique so smooth that it left the crowd speechless. Ego lay on the ground, stunned. The crowd was silent. No one had expected this outcome. The strongest woman in the village, the undefeated champion, had been bested by her own husband. The village was in shock, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. As Ikenna extended a hand to help Ego up, the village finally erupted into applause. Ego, still stunned, accepted his hand, though the reality of her loss weighed heavily on her pride. She had always seen herself as invincible, but this defeat humbled her in a way no amount of victories ever could. Ikenna spoke softly as they walked away from the arena. "Strength is not always about power," he said. "Sometimes it is about patience, strategy, and humility." Ego, though bruised both physically and emotionally, understood the lesson her husband had imparted. She had always fought with force, never realizing there were other ways to win. After the fight, the village treated Ikenna with newfound respect. He had shown them that strength came in many forms, and that even the mightiest could fall if they did not remain humble. Ego, though no longer the reigning champion, embraced her loss gracefully. She continued to train, but now with a deeper understanding of what true strength meant. The legend of Ego and Ikenna became a story passed down for generations in Umuwachara. It was a tale not just of strength and competition, but of love, humility, and the balance of power within relationships. And so, Ego's legacy lived on, not as the undefeated champion, but as the woman who learned the true meaning of strength.